Radio Free Santa Clarita presents The Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. Episode 140. Democratic candidate for the 25th Congressional District, Aníbal Valdez-Ortega. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it. It was kind of a last-minute kind of arrangement to do this. So let me start with the hard question.
Shoot.
How do you pronounce your name?
That is the hard question.
Well, it is for me. As I told you, and I've said many times on the show, I have trouble saying Carlos. So, you know.
That's why you got to roll the R's.
You got to roll the R's.
My first name is Anibal.
And Anibal.
There you go. The accent's on the I.
Okay.
So my best friends call me
Anibal.
Anibal, yes. And my friends call me Ani. So feel free to call me Ani. It's fine.
Well, I can do that. That's it's like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Anakin. And Annie. Ani. Does that work for you? I can call you.
My best friends call me Ani. That's fine.
Ani.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do. May I call you Ani?
You may. In fact, I prefer it.
Okay. Well, my friends call me Steven. You can call me John.
Perfect. John, thank you.
All right. Well, okay. So let's start with just. I mean, you've kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, when did you actually decide to run, and when did you actually make it public that you were going to run?
We filed papers 2.5 weeks ago, and we've been working diligently on nominations, getting public support, getting the word out. But that's the final stage. In terms of declaring when I'm going to run, it's something that's always been on my list
to do. But when did you make it public? When did you actually announce beyond, like, I mean, there's announcing and there's filing papers. When did you actually decide and make an announcement you're going to run?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, okay.
Right after Thanksgiving.
And how long have you been thinking about running for Congress?
Since I was a child. It's always been, in my family, you give back to the community. And so I knew as soon as I started college at UCLA, I was going to run for public office, and it's going to happen. And so it just so turned out that because of the vacancy in the seat, and everything seems to be going well with my law practice, I was like, you know what, this is the perfect time to run.
You seem young. I mean, how old are you?
How old do I look?
Don't throw that at me, man.
John, come on. How old do I look? No, I'll answer your question. I'm 37.
37,
yes.
Okay. Well, you're older than Katie was.
Yes.
Or is. Okay, so, and so you're a millennial, I guess, that you would call yourself a millennial.
I think people have called me that, yeah.
Okay. Because I tell you, the last... 2016, I mean, or what year is it? 2018. I was just every candidate wanted to brag about the fact they were millennials. Okay. So you grew up where, in Palmdale, right? You are from this district. You actually grew up here.
I was born at UCLA, and back when I was born, there were no hospitals here. So my mother was in labor. She drove from Palmdale to Westwood to have me, and then the very next day, we drove right back to Palmdale. Okay. So I've been in Palmdale from day two.
Day two.
I went to elementary here. I went to junior high. I went to high school. I went to Antelope Valley College. And then that's where I had to go to UCLA because there's no more universities in the valley. So I was raised in,
Sounds like you don't get out much.
25. I mean,
practically your whole life has been in the Antelope Valley. It sounds like.
Yes and no. I mean, I loved growing up here. We just had a meeting before this. I tell people I'm very fortunate to have grown up in Palmdale, Lancaster, the district here, because it's a small town. Yeah. At the same time, it's not. It's a community that's very tight knit. People all know one another.
Right.
And so I really respect that. I'm glad in many ways that I was able to grow up in the district.
Yeah.
And then go to UCLA, which is a part of a large town, obviously, Los Angeles, and then see what the differences are. There's benefits to both, but I'm really glad that this is where I grew up.
Well, have you ever had a desire to leave the Antelope Valley to move someplace else? I mean, you're a lawyer now. You could, set up practice in New York or, Iowa. I don't know why you'd want to go to Iowa.
Or Kentucky, why not?
Or Kentucky. Oh, no, you don't want to go to Kentucky. No, I shouldn't say that. There's some great things about Kentucky. But, have you always wanted to just stay where you are? Or?
Well, I've traveled to New York. Before I was an attorney, I worked at Turner Broadcasting, and I went to New York every year. I've traveled to New York, I've traveled to Atlanta, I've been to Greece, I've been to many different parts of the United States and international for
but
business.
You never had a desire to move someplace else.
No, it's not even that.
Yeah.
I've been in those areas, and there was always something that drew me back. And that's how I knew that this is where I belong.
It was a large bungee cord.
Hey, it's a feeling where you belong, when you're calm,
sure.
where your family is,
that.
and when you go home and you can feel restful at night. And so that's something I haven't had in anywhere else I've traveled. I traveled to Asia, like I said, Europe, South America, the East Coast.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Kentucky, sorry. But there's always this feeling, this magnet that I'm like, okay, this is where I can sleep. This is where I can contribute to society.
Right.
This is where I feel at home.
Yeah. Are you married or kids or anything like that?
Never married, no kids. I know that the right woman's out there. I just haven't found her yet. Okay. She hasn't found me, so.
Okay. Well, great way to get dates. Run for office.
That's not why I'm running, but I'll take your word for it.
We had a city council candidate out here that I can't prove it, but he seemed to be. He talked about the fact that he could get dates because he was running for city council.
You talked about it in the interview.
No, we didn't do an interview.
Okay, if it's on the record, that's a problem.
No, not on the record.
Okay, good.
But that's why I'm not going to name names. But
yeah, no, don't do that.
Yeah. Okay, so and then you said you've always wanted to. Is this your first time to run for anything?
It's first time running for Congress. I've always had positions in boards from college to undergrad, not the various nonprofits I've been a part of, the Skid Row Running Club, which I helped start with Judge Mitchell, who's part of the Supreme Court, the Los Angeles Superior Court, and also the Mexican American Bar Association.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. He's amazing.
But this is your first time to actually get into a candidacy and
for public office?
For public office,
yes.
okay.
Yes,
why Congress? Why not start smaller, like school boards, city council, district supervisor, something like that? I mean, why did you jump into Congress right away?
I always knew this is what I wanted to do. And so the real question is, why not? And so here with the vacancy and with certain individuals who are running, who I won't name names, but it'll be, the proof is in the pudding, they'll show up later. There's a real need in this district. I grew up here. I've lived here for the first 20 years of my life. And as an attorney, I've come back. And so I know the people. I'm from here. My family's here. My friends are here. And so I think, okay, there's ideas out there. These people who live here need help, for one, and they're really smart and they know how to solve their issues, and so they need somebody who'll be able to advocate on their behalf. And so I thought, okay, I'm established now in my practice.
Right.
There's a vacancy. The people here, and they've acknowledged that they need help and that they want me to run. I was like, why not? It's almost as a perfect blend of everything coming together, and it's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off there.
Of course.
But I mean, were you planning on running against Katie Hill?
I was.
You were.
In fact, I was going to run against Katie Hill, and at that time, I had a choice: run for Congress or start my own practice. And so I reached out to several because I was really on the line. I was like, I'm going to start my own practice. I'm going to run for Congress. And every single mentor that I've had throughout the years, there's a lot of people who have mentored me at certain key points in my life, said, okay, what should I do? I need some guidance. And they all said unanimously, start your own practice. Establish yourself as somebody who can give back, do some good works in the community, and if the opportunity ever comes back, go back and do it. And so I resigned myself thinking, this is something I've always wanted, to run for Congress and represent people, but right now is not my time. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to run.
That was in 2018.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I started my practice.
Right.
It's gone gangbusters. I've helped a lot of the community members. I do a lot of pro bono work every week, 20 hours minimum. Okay. Doesn't matter the week. And then I saw what happened. I was like, okay, this is it. This is my opportunity. This is what I've always wanted. I wanted to do it before, but it wasn't quite right. And now it's time.
Now, were you going to challenge Katie in the primary? Or was it because she stepped aside that you've chosen to run now?
Well, now there's a vacancy, but I was actually going to run as a Democrat as well in 2018.
So you were going to challenge her?
Yes.
What?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's figure this out here for just a second, because I mean there are different types of Democrats, right? I mean, there's the Blue Dog, there's the Bernie Bros, there's super progressives, there's the moderates, there's just Dems, but. So, I mean, the first question, I guess, is if you were going to challenge Katie, what was she doing wrong as a congressperson that you felt that the need to step up for and replace her?
I don't like to phrase as to what somebody's doing wrong.
Okay.
What would I have done differently?
Yeah, okay.
What would I have done differently? For me, growing up in the Antelope Valley, for people who know me, they know I grew up in a house that was very poor. Neither of my parents grew up with an education. My father and my mother both unfortunately did not finish high school. And so for me, education is everything. So for me, I would take education and make that the pillar, because far too many kids in Palmdale, Lancaster, Rosemont, where I grew up, tell me, I want to go to school, but A, I don't know how I'm going to fund it. B, I don't know how I'm going to get there. And C, they've never left the valley, Antelope Valley, so they don't know what's on the other side of the overpass. So what I would like to see, and what I really strive to work on, is, okay, how can we facilitate that is education a right? And the answer is yes. In my opinion, it is. It's a fundamental right. And the Antelope Valley, they're blue-collar, hardworking people. And not everybody wants to get a bachelor's. Not everybody wants to get a BS. Some people want to go into welding. Some people want to go into nursing. Some people want to earn a trade. And so what I would have done differently, okay, not to say that anybody's wrong, because again, reasonable minds can differ, is make education your pillar, your foundation of everything, and make sure that whether it's a 2-year or a 4-year, we need to invest in the kids. We need to invest because that's the future.
So do you support free college or free community college?
And not only for the 2-year to earn a trade, absolutely. But absolutely, the next step is for the 4-year. Because remember, not everybody wants to get a bachelor's.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's true. And I think community college in particular, offering people the opportunity to learn a trade of some sort.
I went to community college. I'm speaking from first-hand basis because that's what I did. But also, more importantly, the people who are in the district, they told me, you know what, this is what I want to do. Why do I need to get a degree? And why do I need to get a degree? And the answer is you don't. If you don't want to, don't do it. Do what you want to do. Do what makes you happy. And by all means.
Yeah. Well, let's define you a little bit. I know you probably don't want to be defined, but
no, not at all. I mean, John, shoot.
Okay. Well,
I'll stop calling you John. I'll stop calling you John.
We're friends now. You can call me Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
I think the presidential candidates are pretty much across the spectrum. Have you picked one, or are there anybody that you like in particular, or don't like?
I like their energy, okay, and I like the platform that the Democratic Party seems to be following. Focus on green energy, focus on education, focus on universal health care, and something that everybody seems to agree on is how to move forward, how to get rid of this bipartisanship and move back to a place where we can all talk. And so, do I endorse a candidate? Not yet. I think right now they're all kind of in their camps, but overall, I like the message. I like the idea.
Well, I mean, but see, this is where I'm asking you to kind of pick.
You want me to pick?
Well, I mean, as far as platforms go, you don't have to necessarily endorse a candidate, but for example, if you say, I think Bernie has the best platform, or if you say Amy Klobuchar has the best platform, I mean, that definitely, there's a radical difference between those two and what they think. I mean, do you support Medicare for all?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And so if those are the bases that we're going to engage on, the one that I relate to at the moment, and again, we have to understand these platforms are constantly shifting.
Sure, yeah.
Especially with, unfortunately, Senator Kamala Harris dropping off.
Yeah.
These platforms get absorbed into one another. But right now, the platform that I most agree with would be Bernie Sanders, absolutely.
Okay, were you a Bernie supporter in 2016?
I was.
Did you vote for Hillary in the general?
Because Bernie Sanders was not available, yes.
You did vote for her. Okay.
I did, yes.
Okay, and I mean, I think a lot of people, because you've kind of come out of, I mean, have you been involved with Democratic organizations in the past?
Yes.
Can you tell me some of the ones you're involved with?
Well, I've been involved with the Democratic organization in Los Angeles because that's where I went to undergrad and that's where I went to law school. And a lot of the organizations that I've been blessed to be a part of are heavily Democratic leaning. And so without having to call out where's your Democratic card, the values that they stand for, the propositions that they support, the candidates they support have all been heavily Democratic.
Okay, but none of the Democratic clubs or anything like that?
The Democratic Club of Los Angeles, yes.
Okay.
In Southern California, yes.
Okay. Have you been seeking endorsements from any of the Democratic clubs?
We have. And again, we just got started 2 weeks ago.
I recognize that.
So part of it is getting the nominations, getting the signatures, getting the word out. We just finished, like I mentioned earlier, the interview process with SEIU. So now we're transitioning into the endorsements, the fundraising phase.
Right.
And we're all grassroots. So we're not taking any corporate money, which makes it a harder path, but is the right path for us.
Where's your law practice at, first off?
Downtown.
Why are you practicing law downtown instead of like Palmdale?
I do both. My office is in downtown.
Okay.
But I would say half my clients are in Lancaster, Palmdale, and here in Valencia.
And what kind of law, you kind of touched on it, but what kind of law do you practice in general? I mean, what is it you specialize in?
I focus in 3 different areas. I do criminal, civil, and immigration.
Okay. Why those 3 specialties? What is it about that appeals to you to do those?
Well, my mother, as I mentioned earlier, she's an immigrant, first generation. So by effect, for me, that's near and dear to my heart. So I want to make sure that people who come here can contribute, that they feel comfortable. The immigration laws, in my opinion, need to be completely reformed. There's got to be a pathway to citizenship. DACA must be extended, and TPS cannot be used as a bargaining chip. Just cannot. Criminal, because not enough people have access to quality attorneys to represent them in the criminal system. A lot of people take the deal, and a lot of times it's against their interests. A lot of times they're innocent. Sometimes they're not. Okay, that's for a jury to determine. But sometimes they just take the deal because they don't have access to a lawyer.
Yeah,
that's just the reality.
It's cheaper to just take the time.
It's cheaper to take the time, and if they have immigration issues, that's what they don't understand, where the two areas intersect, and that's a problem. So as an advocate, I always tell them, you need to understand that these two bodies of law may cause a problem. And the third is civil, because we live in LA. There's a lot of people who have accidents against neighbors, car accidents, people who get injured, and so there's a real demand in places like our district, District 25, for people to have quality representation, an attorney who can speak Spanish, an attorney that understands where criminal, civil, and immigration all intertwine. Because at some point, and I didn't get this so much later in law school, all bodies of law just kind of meet. And so that's the attorney who can see that, who can tap into the community need, is an attorney that, in my opinion, will be ahead of the curve.
You brought up immigration.
Sure.
Let's talk about that, because that's a hot button topic these days.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're against kids in cages.
As everyone should be. Yes, I am.
But the border, first of all, why do you think the situation with the border has intensified as of late? In the past year, it seems to have gotten worse and worse as far as the amount of people trying to cross the border. Do you have any reasons why that might be? Or,
well, you want to phrase it in terms of people crossing the border? Because the statistics don't bear that out. But I will answer. I'll answer your question.
You probably know more about it than I do.
I'll answer your question. Okay. The statistics don't bear that out, that more people are crossing the border.
Okay.
That's a red herring.
It's actually down.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a red herring, and it's a misnomer, which is very dangerous to deal in politics and in false narratives, because that's the big catchword now. Really, why it is that the border has become such a hot button topic is because that's really the history of the country. I'm assuming, are you Native American? Were you born here, or are you from other descent?
No, my ancestors were slave owners. Sadly.
Acknowledging is the first step.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, is that no matter where you come from in this world, immigration from all parts of the world, they're targets, and they're easy targets. Why are they easy targets? Because they're not from here oftentimes, because they don't speak the language, and they don't have advocacy, somebody here who can fight on their behalf. And so when you have this current administration picking on somebody who doesn't have, as I just mentioned, those three things, they're easy targets. And so where I disagree with the premise of your question is that the number of crossings are gone.
Well, where did you get that stat?
Pick a study. People are not crossing over right now because of this so-called wall that's going to be built. Okay, and just the overall political climate in this country, the numbers have been down. They've been down for some time, and so that is probably why, in part with many other reasons, why the wall, in my opinion, unnecessary wall, hasn't been built. And so the fact that they are easy targets because the administration has made them a scapegoat, and there's a lot of nativist opinions out there, it really speaks to this administration's base. And it's unfortunate because that means, as an attorney, as a community organizer and advocate, there needs to be more conversations. There needs to be more interactions that people understand that there are push-pull factors. Factors pushing them from more of the countries of origin, and factors pulling them into the United States.
Why do you think there's so much hostility toward immigration? What is it that makes the average American anti-migrant? Why is that? Is it racism? I
don't think the average American is anti-immigrant. Everybody's an immigrant. That's just it. That the premise again is where you and I can reasonably disagree. But you're asking my opinion.
I'm not disagreeing with you on anything. I'm asking you questions. So, like Trump's base, for example. They, want that wall, build that wall, and everything like that. Where is to me, it seems that you said scapegoat. That there seems to be like a point the finger at. Here's where your problem is. Is that what it is? Why people are anti-immigrant, because Trump is driving that idea to people, or
there's never in life in general, I will argue, a silver bullet to anything. There's never just one answer. And so with the incoming administration, what I've noticed is that there's a sentiment about people being left behind, about people feeling disenfranchised. And there needs to be a simple answer. And the simple answer is, it's not that we aren't investing enough in education. It's not that the United States isn't investing in healthcare. It's that person's fault. And that's easy. Doesn't require a lot of logic, doesn't require a lot of argument, But if that person is the problem, let's ignore these big problems. Let's ignore that corporations are not paying their fair share. Let's ignore that in this district, District 25, the average percentage of people who are going to get an education is about 25%. That's not going to cut it. Let's ignore that in this district. People are uninsured or underinsured, even with some of the public subsidies that are out there. And so those are big problems. Let's ignore in this district that people are oftentimes living on a fixed budget, whether they're retired or otherwise, or disabled.
Yeah.
Those are hard subjects. Those are subjects that need congressional approval and need congressional rules to change versus, hey, it's that person's fault. Go get... That's simple. It's too easy. Nothing in life is ever the easy answer.
Yeah. We talk about, immigration in general. I mean, what you said, DACA, which makes sense. Reforming immigration in some sense. I mean, what would you do specifically? I mean, it's been sold the idea that the families, you got to verify that the kids are actually the kids of the people that claim to be the parents, yada, yada, yada. DNA tests and everything else. I mean, what do you think needs to be done? I mean, should we that path to citizenship? Yeah. I mean, what is the solution? I'm not asking for like a 25 words. Yes, I am actually.
I think you are
25 words.
I'll do my best.
All right, and go.
Yeah, thanks. Step one: these are people.
Right.
Okay, and I think in this conversation it's often lost. And even in the language that we hear in mainstream media, not accusing present company excluded, they're illegals. No, they're not illegals.
I've been corrected on that a couple of times.
Yeah,
and I actually try and
and it's hard.
Now.
And it's hard, but that's step one. They're not illegals. They're people, first and
Yeah.
foremost. Second, why are they coming here? And they contribute to society. And that's what a lot of people don't really grasp, is that they are our neighbors. They are our children's nephews and nieces, friends at school. They work in the businesses. They're employers and they're our employees. So they are real people who are contributing. Why do you have contributing people of society on the margins? Doesn't help anybody. Okay? Because once they grow roots in the community, they flourish and they grow.
Yeah.
My mother was an immigrant. Now I'm here running for Congress. If those people who had these potentially nativist or misunderstood concepts, then I wouldn't be here. So first of all, it's understanding that there are people,
Right.
and that in Congress, because Congress in immigration law has the responsibility to move forward, and that in many reasons is why a lot of this is gridlocked. This isn't done through the president. It's not done through state legislatures. It is specifically through plenary law in Congress. So you need to get the right Congress members who, one, understand the law, who are too sensitive to the realities, not opinions, but the realities that these are people who contribute to society.
Right.
And three, want to make a difference. And that's why, for myself, I consider myself a strong candidate, because I fit all three things. As the son of an immigrant who understands the law, because I became a lawyer and I do immigration law and I want to run for public practice. That's what you need to be successful in this area. And it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
United States is the best country in the world, but it's not perfect. We can make it better. And the only way we can make things better is if we work in unison. And that means understanding the problem and reaching out across the aisle, because it's not going to be a Democratic thing. It's not going to be a Republican. It needs to be an American solution to a distinctly American problem. People want to come here. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's what got us to where we are. And if we don't understand that this is a benefit, then we're not going to move ahead. It's not going to happen.
I've always argued that, to me, somebody that traipses, by foot with their kids a couple thousand miles.
Does it sound familiar? Because we're in December. Does it sound familiar to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then to come to America for hopes of a better life. To me, that is the most American thing a person could do.
Sure.
That is what America is. Everybody came to this country looking for a better life. I'm going to get off my soapbox. But, I mean, actually, the right would counter that, Bill. But they would say, every time you talk about them being people, the migrants being people, and, blah, 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 they're not...
So they're not people?
No. But, I mean, or they say they're illegal or whatever, they always throw out, like, a name of some person, some tragedy where an immigrant killed the person, or some horrible, violent crime. I mean... What do you say to that when someone says that back? Tell that to so-and-so's folks who,
I'll answer that directly.
Yeah.
because that does happen.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not running for Congress with blinders on.
Sure.
Okay. As an attorney, I know the realities of the world, that there are people who have made poor decisions, who, if they could take it back, would. That's a reality. Okay. But for every news article that you see where there's a tragedy, okay, there's community members who are feeding the poor here in Santa Clarita. There are people who are reaching out during the earthquake in Northridge. There are people here through the unfortunate shooting accident that we had not too far back, who are reaching out and giving free food, free coffee. What can I do? Blankets. Let's talk. Let's be safe.
Right.
Those are the people who don't get recognition. And part of that is, unfortunately, news focuses on the negative. That's what people want to hear. That's part of human nature. And I understand it.
Yeah.
But whenever somebody counters with, oh, there was this negative thing that this person did, how do you feel about that? I feel terribly for that family.
Right.
Nothing's going to make that family whole. Nothing that I say, nothing that anybody can do will make that family whole. But that's not an excuse.
No.
And it's not representative, most importantly, of what these immigrants contribute to society. And it shouldn't be. And so we need to understand, one, as I said earlier, we're humans. We make mistakes. Okay, no immigrant, no person who's an American citizen can say otherwise.
Sure.
And so part of that is having that conversation. Because oftentimes, and I mentioned this earlier, we get into this bipartisan camp, and we shouldn't do that. Because at the end of the day, right, left, or middle, we're all Americans. We all agree that we're on the same team.
Okay.
But that conversation isn't happening enough.
Okay, I want to talk about that in a minute here, but first off, that was more than 25 words.
I get paid by the word. What can I say?
I got you. And then let's just go down through, like, I mean, you would call yourself a progressive Democrat, I assume. If
Yes.
You were, okay.
Yes, sir.
Let's just go down the list of the basic issues that seem to be going around here. For example, are you a religious person, or do you?
I was raised Catholic.
You were
yes.
raised Catholic?
Yes.
Are you pro-choice?
Yes, I am.
You're pro-choice.
I'm obviously a male, so I'm never going to have that decision.
Right.
But as a male, and having grown up in the society, I don't believe that I should tell a woman how she should deal with the pregnancy. I believe it is pro-choice. I believe that is a very solemn decision that she has to make, and I think it should be left pro-choice.
How do you feel about the election situation, fair elections, and voter ID?
25 words or less? Well, let's call a spade a spade.
Okay.
We are entitled in this country to vote, and we are entitled in this country to cast secret votes so that people can't say, why did you vote for that person or the other? I believe that voter ID is, again, a red herring. In fact, the current administration, one of the first things they did is they created a board to go around and look at where there was voter fraud. And the only voter fraud that they found was for a Republican candidate. So voter ID is not the answer. It is a red herring. Let's call it what it is. Do some people vote mistakenly? Yes. You have a country of 300 million people. There will be mistakes.
Yeah.
There will be.
Yeah.
No system is perfect. But voter ID is specifically, and in my opinion, purposefully targeted at areas where there is a change from a red district to a blue district, areas where they're particularly minority oriented, okay? And there are numerous examples where the voting district, the voting site was moved miles away. That's not to facilitate the vote. Let's be very honest. That's to limit the vote or cut it off altogether.
Well, I mean, what would you do to ensure, fair elections?
You can't ensure. It's too big of a country. Ensure to me is a guarantee. You can. I think right now the system is good, but we experienced, and I think the intelligence reports are out there. It's indisputable. We experienced a foreign intervention in the election, and that can happen.
Yeah.
Paper ballots is one way.
Yeah.
But it's also acknowledging, again, having a very blunt conversation. This happened.
Yeah.
It happened. Own it, accept it, and move on. If you don't do that, there won't be change. So, in my opinion, if you're asking me what can we do, first step, it happened. Acknowledge it. There was interference, and in some states, it caused a big problem. There was some electoral votes that, by a margin of 10,000 votes, could have changed the election, potentially. That's not making an excuse for either candidate. I'm not saying that. But it happened, and it can happen again.
What would you do about guns, the situation with guns? How do you feel? Are you a gun owner?
I am not a gun owner. I come from a family that comes from ranchers, from farmers. My two brothers have guns. My grandfather had a gun. My great-grandfather fought in the Mexican Revolution. He had a gun, several guns. And as we talked about yesterday, there's a certain bill on a certain senator's desk that has bipartisan support that has not passed.
From Kentucky.
From where?
Kentucky.
That's right. And so I bring it because it brings it home to you. There is sensible gun restrictions out there. Okay? I don't have a gun, But I believe that sensible gun owners are amongst some of the most responsible gun owners out there.
How do you feel about assault weapons, like the AR-15?
I believe that they have no place in society.
Okay.
You're not going to go hunt a deer. I'm sorry. You're not going to go hunt a turkey with an AR-15. That's you use it out in the gun range.
You might, but there wouldn't be much left of the turkey.
I mean, right. What are you doing with an AR-15 if you're going hunting? They're not hunting. Okay, there's only one animal that those guns are meant to hunt.
Right.
Okay, and they're not here in the Santa Clarita foothills, and they're not in the Tehachapi Mountains. Let's be very real. They have no place in modern society. They just don't.
One of the, I guess, more controversial things that Trump, or what he would call one of his accomplishments, was the tax cut that he passed. There's a big issue about income inequality in this country. Do you agree?
Incoming or income?
Income equality. Inequality.
I was going to say, incoming.
It's like a tongue twister.
It's been around. It's not incoming as far as I know.
No, I mean, but how do you feel about it? Do you it exists? You acknowledge it exists, I assume. And do you have any ideas what we could do about it?
Well, first step is, again, acknowledging that it does exist.
Yeah.
And yes, there is an income inequality between CEOs and the people who are working there every day.
Yeah.
In fact, I just had the presentation this afternoon at the SEIU. And so you have a CEO of a corporation who uses union workers. The CEO's base salary is $5 million a year. And then you have these union workers who's aren't even making $15 an hour.
Right.
Are you really going to tell me that the CEO works 1,500 times harder than this woman or this man who works in a restaurant or in the bathrooms or in a construction yard or manufacturing? The answer is clearly no.
Right.
Okay, so it has become now such a disparate, income inequality that it's become it's acceptable, and it's not. It shouldn't be acceptable. So how do we deal with it? One, give people a livable wage. I know people are against the $15 wage, but they shouldn't be, because so much of the money is not taxed to corporations or mismanaged. And so this leads a little bit into one of my platforms, which is, why are so many corporations not being taxed? This is a very burning platform. And why is it that society has become okay with it? And so that leads to the income inequality, because, as I can attest, education is the path forward.
Sure.
When you have education, you can spot the issues. When you have education, you can stand up, you have a voice. When you have an education, you can create jobs, you can become a better employee, you can command higher wages, and you can change an industry. So if we are not taxing these corporations, and the government clearly is not, then what are we really standing up for? We're just allowing the status quo to continue. That's a problem. So one of my platforms to attack that, the income inequality, and also at the same time fix the education problem, is if a corporation has not paid at a minimum 10% for the last 3 years, then they will contribute that money not to the government directly, because the government's already forfeited that right. They haven't been collecting it. They're going to pay it to accredited universities and accredited colleges.
You're going to have them paid directly?
Directly, yes.
Well, I mean,
because the government's not collecting. So why would the government have a say? We're going to have those corporations pay directly to accredited universities, colleges, and trade schools.
Well, don't they already kind of do that with donations and foundations? And
it's select schools.
So I mean, how
and it doesn't reach anywhere near the 10%.
Okay, but I'm confused as to who's going to enforce that if the government's not going to actually collect the money.
The government's not going to collect. In other words, it's not going to go into the government coffers.
Okay.
The government's going to say, through the IRS,
right,
Corporation ABC has not paid 10% in taxes. So Corporation ABC will say, okay, 10% of your taxable income is going to go to accredited universities, accredited colleges, and accredited trade schools equally. It's not going to be the Stanford, the UCLA, USC, the Yale.
Okay, so the IRS would actually handle the
yes. So the government's not going to collect those taxes and sit on it, because the government already has not been collecting.
I get you. I get you. I think one of the questions, I mean, I assume you're also for the Green New Deal? Okay.
I mean, have you driven down the 14 freeway lately? Did you see the hillsides all charred?
I try and stay away from the 14 as much.
Well, I had to drive the 14 to get down here.
I got you.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, I love the concept of the Green New Deal. I like the idea of Medicare for all. And God, I love the idea of free education. But you know, the issue I think a lot of people keep throwing back is, how are you going to pay for all this? How are you going to pay for all this? I mean, the costs alone for Medicare, I mean, the numbers they're throwing out are in the trillions and trillions of dollars. What is your solution to paying for all this stuff?
The solution is, it's more expensive not to act. And this isn't a new argument.
Okay.
It's been an argument that's been recurring.
Well, I'm old. So
people are underinsured or they're not insured. And so you have a person who has access to Medicare, who will go to routine checkups, who will go and get the medical treatment when they need it. Or you have a person who is not insured and will go when now it's appendicitis and it's an emergency and they have to take an ambulance or an Uber, which is happening, which is terrible that we live in a society with so many riches and they're taking an Uber or a Lyft. That shouldn't happen. To the emergency room to get treated. Which one is cheaper? You're just kicking the can down the road. And so the costs are there. We are humans. Okay, it's very frank. We need to put it on the table. We're humans, people, we're going to get sick. Until you can tell me we've gotten rid of all infectious diseases, all illnesses, guess what? People are going to get sick. It's not going to go away.
Healthcare is a right then.
Healthcare is a right because we are humans and we're going to get sick.
What about the Green New Deal? I mean, that it seems like, and I think it's a great idea, but I mean, it just the argument.
So what are you against the bit then?
I think. Well, let me give you Katie's argument because I talked to her about it a little bit, and Katie said that you got a lot of small businesses that would affect directly, and possibly hurt them, and that was why she was cautious about it. I'm not saying she was or wasn't for it. She just said she was cautious about it. And I mean, you are talking about radically changing the way this whole society thinks and works. And that is going to affect businesses. Is it not going to screw up the economy in a lot of ways? Or how do you answer that?
Sure. It's a good question. And we have to acknowledge that with significant changes, there will be a learning curve. There was a learning curve going from elementary to middle school. You're going to tell kids that you shouldn't graduate to high school? That's not the problem. The problem is that we need to understand that greenhouse gases, climate change is real. Okay, we are having more wildfires in the state of California than ever before. Part of it, let's be honest, has been because of the structure of the electrical lines. That's been somewhat corrected. Okay, but the weather's getting hotter. We need to think not only in the present, but what are we leaving behind for our kids and our kids' kids? And so if in the interim, if in the near future there is a disruption, then let's move towards that disruption. Let's address it because we don't want people being left behind. We don't want small businesses to close. We don't want people to lose their houses or their apartments or kids that get kicked out of school. That's an immediate problem. But that should not stop us from moving forward. And so will there be a learning curve? Yes. Will there be some hurting pains? Absolutely. But what's the alternative? The alternative is we do nothing. The alternative is we put it away and talk about it in 5 years. Meanwhile, we're not getting rid of coal. We're not getting rid of oil, and that's the problem. We have here in Congressional District 25 wind. We have here a ton of sun. It's a high pressure system, which means we have gorgeous blue skies everywhere. Why aren't we using it? And that leads more towards the education. If you invest in the kids, in the future, they will find those industries. They will create new ways. If we're not investing in education and we're saying that the Green Deal is too much, then what we're doing is really you're getting rid of any option in the future, and you're getting rid of anybody putting any brain power into fixing the problem. I'm not opposed to the Green New Deal. I'm not opposed to Medicare for all. I'm concerned about, and this is the argument you're going to run into in Congress, is how do you pay for it? Are you going to raise taxes on everybody? What are you going to do? It needs to be paid by the people who aren't paying taxes now. Okay, so you're going to tax the rich. We need to kick, not the rich, corporations. Okay. We need to kickstart this because people oftentimes can't see the path through the forest until it's lit for them. Okay. And the way to kickstart this is we need to invest heavily. If in the 60s JFK says we can't invest in traveling to the moon, people would be like, yeah, it's too expensive. We don't see a way there. But they didn't. They spent the time. They made the resources. They put the full bearing of the U.S. government. Yeah, I think that's a good example, actually. They put the full bearing of the U.S. government. What did they do? By the end of the decade, they went to the moon. Allegedly. If the moon has an atmosphere and it's waving, but that's just it. Yeah. Like, human beings and Americans, you and I, we can figure the solution to anything. Sure. We really can. Yeah. But not if, one, you don't address the problem because you have to understand it. Two, not if you don't fully invest in it. And three is the biggest one, not if you don't believe it'll work. Now, a lot of people would say, you're talking about taxing corporations. Okay. Sure. That's the start. I don't have a problem with that. However, some would argue that actually would hamper business and actually, again, affect the economy. An example is Amazon. Now,
people throw.
You mean that they opened up that New York office after the civil war?
No.
Because that's fairly recent.
The argument is a lot of people would say, well, they didn't pay taxes, and people get up in arms about it. The argument back to it is, for years, Amazon took a loss after a loss after loss before they started to really turn into something.
Sure. And that's how many small businesses operate as well.
And so if you're talking about taxing businesses,
corporations.
Well, corporations. Amazon might not exist today. Well, that might not be a good thing. I don't know. But, businesses like Amazon won't have that opportunity to flourish. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I'm not saying across the board.
Okay.
Because there is, again, that learning curve. We want to provide people, like I mentioned, with the education.
Yeah.
If you want to go to a trade school and you want to earn a trade, do it. If you want to earn a 4th-degree, do it. That's an investment.
Okay.
And so these corporations, they took these tax subsidies because that was the government investing in them. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
And they've taken that investment and they've gone gangbusters. Good for them. Good. But now you start to look, well, is really this environment the same as it was before? And the answer is clearly no. So we need to invest in corporations that are going to move the needle in the right direction. Are you making a difference in the world in a positive way? Yes. Are you going to get an education, something that's going to make you better? Yes, let's invest. But at some point, these corporations jump over that boundary. And now they are not paying taxes and they have hundreds of billions of dollars in reserves. And those reserves, let's be very clear, are not going to the public sector. They are going to individual shareholders. They are being held in tax dividends.
Okay.
And that does not apply to you and me unless you and I both own Apple stock.
I don't own Apple.
There you go. So then you're not getting any benefit from that.
I own an Apple.
No. So you're investing in other people's dividends.
No, I'm actually produce. Okay.
The fruit. It's a little different.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the district itself. I think this is the 25th is kind of unique in general. Some places you can come from anywhere and move into the district and run. But I think, and then people just think of Congress as, a national thing with national issues alone. But the thing I've noticed about a lot of the voters here in the 25th is they look as to what you're going to do for this district specifically. Sure. What do you have in mind? Let's break it up into 3 parts. What do you think you can do for the Antelope Valley? What do you think you can do for the Simi Valley? And what can you do for Santa Clarita? That's
a good question because you're right. People in this district are hardy. You don't move here because life is easy. The winters are cold, the summers are hot, it's windy, the 14 freeway is crowded, and you either live here and you're working downtown LA, or you're working downtown LA and you come this way. Yeah. So that's just the way it is. So I'm going to take each one of those parts individually because each community does have different needs. The Antelope Valley, where I was raised, we need better jobs. We need more education. The commute from Palmdale, and I'm speaking personally because my office is in downtown LA.
Yeah, that's horrendous.
It is 2 hours and 15 minutes every day. That means me waking up at 4:30 in the morning to get to my office in downtown LA. And the reason why I set up a satellite office in Palmdale is because I couldn't make my clients do that. So I put that onus on myself. I go and I meet with clients. So we need better jobs there. If the people are there, imagine what 4 extra hours with your kids might be every day. Some parents will be like, yeah, it's great. Some parents, maybe not so much. But it's an option. Okay, right now, a lot of people who moved from LA, the suburbs of LA to Palmdale, Lancaster, Rosemont, Quartz Hill, they moved there because the land values were good. They can go from renting to being homeowners, the American dream. Yeah. And then the housing crisis 2008 happened. And then what? They became renters where they thought that they were going to own, and they're still going to LA for work. That can't happen. That needs.
So you bring jobs to the Antelope Valley.
Not only jobs, but the 14 freeway. I mean, again,
expanding.
4 hours is a huge waste of time.
No, but in the 14 is a state highway, isn't it? I mean, what would you? I mean,
well, what's wrong with maybe making it into a federal highway?
I don't know if that can be done. I have no clue if that can even be done.
There's a saying in my culture: "There's nothing worse than not doing nothing." And so, if that's a conversation, let's have it. If you want to take it from a state highway to federal, let's at least have that conversation. What are our options? Because the way that the 14 is currently being run right now isn't cutting it. Yeah. Okay? And then we move into now the communities of Valencia and Simi Valley. Simi Valley, Valencia, a lot more corporations. Okay? With Valencia, it's a great location. So is Simi Valley. It's somewhat close to LA, somewhat in the middle of Anibal Valley. The people here also need better education. There still isn't a university here.
Right.
Okay? for years there's been talks about making College of the Canyons, Antelope Valley College into a university, into a college. There was even talks about making it into the next Cal State. Never happened. So what are we seeing? We're seeing the students here, great minds, going into LA.
Yeah.
UCLA, USC, Pepperdine, okay? Irvine, South, down below. And they get jobs there and they grow roots. Why are we having our best and talented minds go elsewhere when there's a lot of resources here? Are you going to tell me that there isn't any land? Are you going to tell me that? Because there's lots. It's beautiful. Why aren't we investing here? So the jobs here are a little bit different. The needs are different, but still, it boils down to education. The people here also, because some of them are my clients, they've been talking about the increase in rent. Some people can't afford it. As more people are coming in from LA, their rents are going up. And so here, even though it's not LA, and even though it's not Palmdale, people can't afford a bump of $200 or $300 a month in rent. They can't. So what is that causing? It's causing homelessness. It's causing families to move. And again, it leaves our most vulnerable members of society, or the kids. The kids can't just pick up one day and transition to another school. Okay, it's disruption. It's changing in school. They often leave the community. Okay, and they leave their friends. So what are we really doing for the kids? So I believe that each community has somewhat similar needs, but at the same time, very different.
Well, listen, I'm going to give you 3 specific topics.
Sure.
SIMEX, although it looks like today, as of today, that may be resolved, possibly. What do you know about it? What would you do? Or do you
SIMEX, the cement company?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you support, the mine being here? Would you advocate to get it closed down? I mean, as of today, there was an article in the Signal that BLM came out and said that they owed like $25 million in back fees or something like that. But so it looks like they were going to be in trouble. But I mean, if that does, they'll probably appeal it again. My question is, what would you do about the SIMEX situation?
I believe that corporations and companies like SIMEX who provide jobs and do it the right way should be allowed to do jobs and operate the right way in communities. It's where they jump that line, where now you're not paying your taxes, where now you're disturbing the environment, where you're causing issues with the natural wildlife. That's a problem. Now, there are several SIMEX plants. There's one right here in Hollywood. Okay, that one for years has caused issues because it's in the middle of the town. Okay, there's the cement dust, there's the noise, there's the underground drilling. Okay, so there are several issues that are just inherent in the type of company that they make. This one, if they're being fined, people don't get fined when you're doing things the right way. It doesn't happen.
Well, the SIMEX, to my knowledge, hasn't even opened yet. They've been appealing for years to keep it from opening. Do you... are you opposed to it opening? First off, I guess, are you opposed to it opening? The argument back is that, it would bring jobs, yada, yada, yada. But on the other end of it, there is the issue about pollution that people are concerned about, property values being lowered because of it,
Sure.
Traffic on the 14 in particular. What do you thought? Are you opposed or do you support the idea of bringing that business in here?
I believe the people who are from here are the ones who decide which corporations, which companies should come in. And so if there is some pushback, let's listen to those people. What's the pushback? The property value is dropping, the pollution, both noise and the dust getting kicked up into the air. And so we need to be able to listen to the constituents and have a discussion, because in some ways
I think that discussion's already been settled in the sense that they don't want it here.
Sure. And so that should be the basis. If the people live here, then they should have a say. And here's the thing, I'm not a cement expert, and I don't know if you are, but some jobs are just inherently dangerous, they're just inherently loud, and they just inherently pollute. So if the people here do not want that company, can they look elsewhere? Are there in the foothills? Is there cement out there? I don't know. But the solution should always be community focused first and have them decide, the constituents.
What do you know about the Chiquita landfill out here? And is there anything you could do about it?
Not a lot. I know that there's a landfill in Palmdale, which is similar, I think it's part of the same system. And for years there's been some problem with leaching, which is where some of the waste gets into the water. I believe that's an issue regardless, because we pollute too much, we don't recycle enough, and that again kicks back into the green deal. We should be recycling more, using more recyclable goods, and a lot of the stuff, it's really, we need to incentivize people to contribute to that, either recycling more for cardboard or aluminum. If our people aren't recycling, why isn't that they're not recycling? Is it just not incentive? Is it too hard for them? Do they just not recognize the effects on the environment?
Two of the other areas is the Santa Susana area for cleanup. And
you mean after the fires?
No. There's a waste area there.
Okay.
A lot of radioactive materials. I believe it. I'm forgetting the specifics on it, but it was I believe it was rocket fuel or something that they were. It's over toward the Simi Valley area.
Okay.
It needs to be cleaned up. Any thoughts on that at all? Or?
I'm not familiar with the topic. I'm not going to speak toward things that I don't know, but
I would look into it.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it.
Aliso Canyon with the situation with the gas.
Well, that was from years back, and I believe it just settled it, if I'm not mistaken, just last week. And so, anytime that there's a gas leak where people are inhaling it, corporations, again, need to be held accountable. And I believe they just reached a settlement. It was in, I want to say, the 9 figures. But it doesn't make it okay. And so,
well, what would you do to prevent it from happening again?
Well, you need government inspectors out there. These corporations need to be held accountable. And if it means more regulation, if it means, hey, this can't happen again, then let's make an example out of this so that we don't make the same mistakes twice. Because it was part of a big spill into the air that they couldn't control. I mean, it was going on for weeks and weeks, and you would read it in the paper. And what are people supposed to do? Hold their breath? It can't happen. It just can't happen.
Okay. We have a little section of the show that it's called Question from Ryan, my kid. He's 8 years old.
Is he listening to the show?
No, I just kind of tell him who you are, and he comes up with a question. So we'll cut to the actual question. But his question is this: if you go to Congress, how can you stop having the president putting kids in cages?
By any means necessary, if I could. You just can't have, again, it goes back to discussion. These are people. They really are. They're kids. They're people who fled on foot. Incredible tragedy. And if you're going to say that they're not cages, no, they are. And so it's having this conversation over and over and over again until this president gets it or gets elected out or gets impeached. Because at some point, there's got to be a point where we say, okay, this guy doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it.
Well,
he doesn't
get
it or
doesn't
doesn't
been
care.
Pretty clear for a
or
while now. I mean,
or he doesn't care, which is worse.
Yeah.
And so, what can we do? He is, unfortunately, the one who makes the decision. A lot of this with the Department of Homeland Security and the Secretary. And so, if they're going to continue to get kids, I was personally involved in getting those people who were arriving. I don't know if you're familiar with years back in the LAX through the Muslim ban. I was in LAX and I was writing petitions on the floor, telling people no, they can come in. Okay, so by any means necessary. That's my response to your son, because they're kids. Okay.
Okay. Do you have a specific idea of what you would do first to try and stop that from happening?
Well, yeah, getting the DHS secretary out there, because the previous one was okay with it. She even said that they weren't cages. She's on the record before Congress. Oh, they're not cages. And I believe Elijah Cummings or another congressman said, yes, they are. How can you possibly imagine that they're on cages? Yeah. And here's the thing: these kids who go through that, it doesn't go away. It stays with them throughout their life. And so what are we really doing for future generations? And what kind of example are we setting?
Do you support the impeachment?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I believe that's crystal clear, what he did. He attempted to get a bribe.
Well, it's interesting. I don't disagree with you. And I've challenged our Republican candidates about that quite a bit.
And I want to know what's in that secret safe that they put these records into, where apparently this is the type of document that goes in there. Why is it there? Come on.
But one of the things you brought up was working together as Americans, not left and right and stuff like that. Yeah. Did you watch any of the impeachment hearings lately?
Every day. I was watching it this morning when the 2 counsels were being questioned. Yes.
Yeah.
It seems like we are living in different.
It literally, when I have discussions with people on the other side about it, it is like they are watching a completely different.
One of my favorite comics came out this week, and I like reading comics. Huge, newspaper nerd, and it says, "Here's the broadcast. It's going to be 65 degrees and sunny," and then on the other side, it's like, here's a Republican forecast. It's like, why? Yeah. It really is like you're living in 2 different worlds.
Well, then how do you work with some people, with the other side, if it has become that partisan?
I think part of the issue, the biggest part, is that many representatives are afraid to really speak their mind. I have some friends who are reporters, and they tell me the things that they will say on the record versus the things that will say off the record, black and white, completely different. And so part of it is reminding these representatives that, one, for your conscience, represent your constituents and put the country above party. That's the way it should be.
Well,
and it sounds great, kumbaya,
right, but nobody's doing that.
But nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
So how do you hold these people accountable? And the only real way to hold them accountable when impeachment might stall is through elections. You get the right people in who you believe are going to hold your best interest and the country's best interest, and vote them into office. Because if they're not going to do their job, and their principal job is oath and respect the Constitution, then they shouldn't be there. Doesn't matter, regardless of party, they shouldn't be there.
Would you have supported the impeachment of Bill Clinton?
I believe, yeah, he lied under oath. He lied under oath. Now, there's an issue of whether it rises to the extent of him being removed from office. That's a fair argument. But he lied under oath, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And definitely Nixon. I wasn't around back then, but good God, what he did was terrible.
Let's talk a little bit. We won't name names about other candidates, but I am curious.
Yeah, I don't want to speak negatively.
I'm not asking you to.
Okay.
But one of the interviews we did, I did was somebody who said, "I'm going to shake up the establishment. I am going to change everything. I'm going to challenge people," and I kind of was like, "Well, that's not how you get anything done in Congress."
Unless you're the king or queen, yeah.
How do you feel about the leadership for the Democrats right now? Nancy Pelosi in general, working with the established Democrats in office right now. I mean, Steny Hoyer. Katie received a lot of criticism from the right about the fact that she was working with the established Democrats already, and some accusing her even of being a socialist. What are your thoughts on that?
I think Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party was faced with a very difficult decision because precedent will tell you that impeachment is a very divisive process. It has to be. By definition, it must be. But they were also faced with the difficult decision, what if we don't act? Okay, if we don't act, are we inviting this establishment, the administration, to do it again? It's right before an election. Yeah. So either way, you have to make a decision, and they're hard. And that's really what representatives are there for. As attorneys, we have to make that hard decision. If you're visiting an attorney, and if you're dealing with impeachment, there are very tough decisions. By definition, they must be. So, do you have to work with the establishment? Oftentimes, yes. Do I believe that Nancy Pelosi is doing the best job, given the very difficult circumstances? Yes.
So, you would support her for leader if you were elected?
I believe she's a strong leader, yes. I believe that she has the country's best interest, which, again, should be your number one priority. Yes.
This district itself, though, is kind of weird in the sense that it's purple.
It is, yes.
I think Katie Hill won because a lot of it she campaigned as being a moderate, for gun rights, but she was a gun owner, for example. How are you going to appeal for the independents that are more conservative, the Trump supporters, Republicans that aren't Trump supporters? What are you going to do to appeal to them? Because I don't think this district is completely Democratic.
It's not Republican either.
Okay.
And like I said, I come from a gun-owning family. Yeah. In fact, I actually went and got my gun permit. I haven't purchased a gun yet. Yeah. But I want to know and I want to understand what that's like. And so I want to be on the record. Gun owners, the vast 99.999% are responsible. They are some of the most responsible people I know. They understand that guns hurt people if they're not used correctly. And so it goes back to what I said earlier. There's a certain bill on a certain senator's desk that has bipartisan support. Why isn't it passed yet? Right. Just because I'm Democratic on the Democrat Party doesn't mean I don't have sensibilities as to the realities of the world. Gun ownership is a hot button issue right now, but there are several issues that go past party. Okay, bipartisanship, the environment, jobs, education, healthcare. We're all humans. We all work, and we all need to learn. Okay, there's a method of finding where that soft spot is so we can move forward together. That's really what it is. And so this district is purple. You're absolutely right. And so we need to, as a successful congressman or congresswoman, we need to be able to look at both sides. Okay, what is the best way forward? And let's work together towards a solution that's manageable, okay, and that it's possible. And let's hope that we can work together in the future to get that done.
Well, I think the question a lot of people might have for you, I mean, there is, a couple, more than a couple. I mean, this has become the whole race has become a bit of a circus with how many people are running right now for both the left and the right. There is, I guess, are you a serious candidate? I mean, how are you doing?
How serious do I look?
Exactly. Well, I've tried to make some quips, and you haven't laughed once. So apparently, you're very serious. But no, I mean, where are you with the funding and the financing? It's going to take a lot of money to win this thing. Do you have this?
I disagree with the premise again.
You don't think it's going to take a lot of money?
It takes the right candidate. And we had this discussion yesterday off the record, so I won't go into details. But Monies don't win election, okay, if you stand behind your ideals and you get people to believe in you. I sincerely believe that.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're focused on monies, then why don't we just let corporations fund everything? That's not what I run on. Our campaign, put me on the record right now, we're not take a single dollar from a corporation. We won't do it. Okay? We will work extra hard.
What about from unions?
We will take, because people, those are the people. We will take money from people, unions, blue-collar workers, okay, friends, family, anybody. And it doesn't have to be money. That's a misnomer that I want to be very clear on. You win elections by representing and standing by what you say. People in this district are very intelligent. They can see a representative, like that guy or that girl, that gal isn't in it for the right reasons. They know.
But I mean, it does cost money to win an election.
It's not cheap, and you know how I know. And you know how I know, because I'm funding so far, as I told you yesterday, in my election so far. We got started. It's expensive.
Yeah.
The government doesn't necessarily make it easy for people to run. There are options to get fee waivers, but it's almost prohibitive given the special election and the constrained time limits. And so we're not running a campaign where we're going to be taking corporation dollars. Does it make it easier? Yeah, but guess what? I'm from Palmdale. Things aren't necessarily easy. Okay, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of going out there and talking. It's going to be a lot of driving up and down the 14 freeway and talking to people and getting fundraisers.
What do you think your chances are?
I think they're good. I think I'm a strong candidate. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. I'm from the district. I have people telling me what they need, and most importantly, I don't tell them the answers. I listen. That's what representatives should do. They should listen first, understand. And if you're from here, you know that that's the biggest issue with people is they want somebody who knows what the issues are. And what better way to know the issues than from being here?
Okay. Let's get your elevator pitch on, 60 seconds or less. Why someone should vote for you over any other candidate?
You should vote for me because this district has a lot of potential. It really does. And if you believe, like I do, that we can make a difference, then this is where it starts. It starts with the communities. It starts with the people. It starts with reaching out and understanding what the issues are. Jobs, education, healthcare, okay? The fires. My grandfather, when he was alive, had to be displaced. He had to move out. I've had several friends whose houses burned. Okay, this is things that people are dealing with every single day. These are tabletop conversations.
Right.
And so when I'm elected, I strongly believe that I'm a strong candidate. We're going to go to Washington and we're going to tell them, look, this is part of LA County, but it's very different. The people here are hardy. They're tough. They're blue collar, and they stand by their values. And if we're going to be in Washington, I don't want to be part of that whole conversation where I get lost in the weeds. That's not what it's about. If I'm going to dedicate, and if I'm going to fundraise, and if I'm going to dedicate my own personal money for this campaign, I want it to be worth something. I want it to go back and say, look, District 25, this is what we were able to deliver, and this is the beginning of something big. We're going to build on this and keep going.
All right, so let's have some fun. Okay.
Sure.
Did you have a stuffed animal as a kid?
I had a Teddy Ruxpin. I don't know if you remember the Teddy Ruxpin.
I do remember the Teddy Ruxpin.
That was my favorite one.
Always looking at him and just kept saying, "Stop staring at me."
He looked a little creepy now in hindsight, but that was my stuffed animal.
And I would rip his eyes out. And,
I had my dog rips out all his stuffed animals, but yeah.
Well, what happened to it? Or is it still with you?
It's in storage. It's still,
is it really?
Yes, it is. You know what? The funny thing is, I think it would actually work if I actually put I think it runs on D batteries. If I put batteries in it, I think it'll work.
I think you should bring it to your next campaign.
That might scare a few kids. Why not? Yeah, sure.
Favorite restaurant on the 25th?
There's a restaurant called Jackie's Country Kitchen in Palmdale, and it has a soft spot for me because that's where my grandfather used to take me.
Nice.
And so my grandfather and my mother are both very important individuals in my life, and so they're country grits and gravy.
Oh yeah.
Forget about it every day. Every day of the week.
I'm with you on that.
It would mean going to the gym more than I already do, but every day if I can.
Do you play any musical instruments?
I play the guitar, and somewhat poorly, but I taught myself. So there.
All right. Okay. What was your first concert?
Embarrassing. It was Dave Matthews Band. I know.
That is embarrassing.
Thank you for that.
Wait,
Shoreline, San Francisco. First concert.
Let me ask you this. Then. Yeah. You brought up Dave Matthews. Do you think they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yes.
No. No.
Yes.
No.
I mean, hold on.
No.
They had to be okay. If I remember the requirements, a band for 25 years. Correct. That's the number one requirement.
That's a low bar, right?
Is
there.
it? Is it?
Just 25 years? I mean,
do I believe Nirvana should be in? Yes, but they don't meet the first bar. So, I mean, what do you do?
Okay.
Yes? Question mark. There you go.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
You know what?
Or can you tell the difference?
Oh, of course. My first memory of a child was my dad watching Star Trek, and I have a weird memory.
Too.
Yeah, my first memory was my dad and I watching Star Trek. I couldn't have been older than maybe 3 months, but something about the music and the weird look, I remember vividly. And my dad's like, "You were like 3 months old." I was like, I don't know why, but I remember.
Do you watch all the Star Trek series?
I did, and at some point I just stopped. I was like, this is getting, I don't even know where we're at anymore. There's been like 7 iterations.
I think so, yeah.
I stopped after 3.
But you know, I've always, while I love Star Wars, I've always maintained you can...
Do you watch all the Star Wars?
I watch all Star Wars, watch all the Star Trek.
The first one, the original.
I'm a nerd, man. Okay. But the one thing I always say is, you know, there are a lot of smart people that like Star Wars and Star Trek.
Sure.
But there are a lot of dumb people that like Star Wars.
Where do you stand on The Mandalorian?
You know what? I love it. I think it's true.
Is it the Baby Yoda, or do you actually like it?
I think.
I'm interviewing now because.
Oh yeah. You know, it reminds me of Firefly a lot, and the Western kind of concept of it, just a space Western.
I mean, that's really what all these are. It's the fight between good and evil, and how it doesn't exist on either extreme.
It reminds me of an old '50s series called Half Gun Will Travel, with Richard Boone. You're way too young for that, but there is a. And I think it'd be actually get on. I think it was kind of ballsy to create a character that never takes his face mask off. You know, to where you don't know what he looks like, don't see any facial expressions ever. But I'm asking you questions.
Sorry.
Who would win in a fight, Superman or the Hulk, and why?
I mean, I still don't think that Superman lost to Batman in that fight, but somehow they made it even close, and I don't know why why in the world that was even a fight. I mean, so Ben Affleck does 150 pull-ups a day, and now he can take on Superman? No.
The rule of comic books is that the smart person always wins.
So if I'm using logic, which obviously we are doing because we're doing comic books, if Superman loses to Batman, then I think he would have to lose to Hulk. Because Hulk can probably do over 150 pull-ups a day.
You know, they're actually,
and I don't agree with it, but we're talking now. Now we're talking serious.
You know, there actually is a Batman-Hulk crossover comic, and then Batman actually kicks the Hulk's butt.
So he's now 2-0 against Superman.
Well, he got smart. He boxed. The Hulk was going to crush him, and he boxed his ears.
So that's his weakness.
Knockout cast. Okay, I thought it was pretty clever. Can you name a life-changing moment in your life? Something big, and why?
Several. I mean,
give me one. Just give me something, and why?
Well, besides running for Congress, which is on my bucket list, I would say there was a time when I was little, and I don't know if you're familiar with the community of Rosemont, which is just outside the district. And I was 5 years old, and I told you my mom was an immigrant, and I learned how to speak Spanish technically before I learned how to speak English. I learned how to speak English through Sesame Street, but I learned both languages at the same time.
Okay.
So I'm down the cereal aisle, and I'm with my mom, and I'm 5 years old. And I remember thinking, I want some Cocoa Puffs. And this is not a commercial, so please don't contact me. But I was like, those are the ones that I want. So I asked Mom in Spanish, can I have some Cocoa Puffs? Yeah. And there's an individual down the aisle who says, learn how to speak English, you effing racial slur word. We're in America.
Wow.
Okay? And I was 4 or 5 years old. And now I'm 37. So this is 32 years back. So you're talking about something that's affected me and why that's the first thing that popped into mind. And it was the first thing that popped into my mind, one, because I'm thinking, isn't that kind of where we're at today? Yeah. And how really cyclical the world is. And that's how we're, again, conversing. And I'll tell you how it affected me. As a 5-year-old kid, I stopped speaking Spanish for 12 years. In fact, I have family from Texas originally. Yeah. And I spoke almost primarily English. And so I think I went through that. Right. 32 years later, I remember vividly where I was in the aisle.
I can imagine.
What the person looked like, how it sounded, how terrified I was. And now we're talking about the kids in cages. And it's very real. Because while that was traumatic and terrifying to me, it couldn't compare to what these families and kids, especially during the holidays now, are experiencing. Yeah. So for me, I take it as this is why right now we need to have that conversation. And it all starts with talking, especially around the holidays. What do? We sit around a table. There's a turkey. There's a ham. Whatever you eat, tamales or pozole, and let's eat and let's talk. Everybody can eat. Everybody can talk. And so it's taboo to talk politics at the table, but it really shouldn't be. Why is it taboo? Because we can't have a conversation. So right, and that's
I was warned at Thanksgiving not to bring up Trump.
But that's just it. That's just it. Like, let's take that next step. Are we saying, are we incapable or are we unwilling? And that's where we need to draw that line. So you asked me what changed my life. That definitely changed my life. Absolutely.
Geez, that was pretty profound. I was looking for more like the first time I saw Scooby-Doo.
Like the first time I went to In-N-Out? No. That would be my second favorite restaurant.
Do you have any tattoos?
I do not.
If you were going to get a tattoo, what would it be and where would it go?
You know what? I almost got one. I was 18, freshman in college, and I was literally in the tattoo parlor. Literally looking at the books. And I thought, I'm such a nerd. Like, none of these tattoos. What am I going to get? Like a barbed wire? Like, I mean, what is this? Yeah. So I thought, what tattoo would actually fit me? Like a stapler, a staple remover, like a swing line.
Oh, I love that.
Like a swing line, like that. That's what it would be. Like, what are we in?
Different.
What are we in? Office space? So I was like, if I can't decide on a tattoo, and I'm like, none of these are swing lines. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get one. So I never got a tattoo. There you go.
Last two things.
True.
First one is I need your best evil villain laugh.
You emailed me about this, and I was like, I've never done an evil, but I'm a fan of The Simpsons, so I'll just excellent.
Okay, I'll give you a pass on that. Okay, and give me a joke.
I'll give you two.
Okay.
And Jenny actually reminded me of these. This is
Jenny off the camera here.
So, what do you call a person with an 80 IQ?
I don't know what.
Your Honor. And what do you call a person with a 50 IQ?
I don't know what.
Congressman. And that's how I bring it all together.
All right. Well, Ani. I'm working on it, man.
You'll get it right.
I'll get it right. Okay. I want to thank you for coming in to doing this. I know it was a very spontaneous, last-minute kind of situation. Wishing you much luck in the election.
Thank you.
Do you have a website anybody want to go to? Or?
I do. It's www.valdez, with the Z, Ortega for Congress.org. And then you can also visit the Instagram and Facebook page, Valdez Ortega for Congress. And for anybody watching, we are looking for volunteers. Again, we're not taking any corporate money, so if you can draw, if you can knock on doors, if you can make phone calls, and you want to make a difference, we want you on our team.
Well, we're gonna. I'm hoping to do some more stuff to highlight the 25th race.
Sure.
Are you willing to come back and talk to us again a couple more times, maybe?
Whenever you want.
Whenever you want? Okay.
I'll work on my laugh, I'm sorry. I'll bring in another Simpsons character if it helps.
All right. Well, I do appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much. Wish you much luck in the election. Yes. We hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
You've been listening to The Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, a new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?